Middle Podcast, the podcast dedicated to the music, movies, and culture of Generation X.
What is up, slackers, and welcome to another episode of the Stuck in the Middle podcast. I am your host, GenX. So recording this is the Tuesday after Memorial Day. And I often find that long weekends, while great, like the week before was kind of stressful and everything was super compacted into 4 days because I had the opportunity to have Friday off as well, but a lot had to happen. Some of the things that it's impacted. So I keep talking about my fitness journey, and I was off for 3 days. And I found that when I got back into the gym, it was really difficult for me to jump back into the running portion of the work that I do. So I typically do stretching, weightlifting, and then running. Some days it's just stretching and weightlifting. Sometimes it's just stretching and running. Yeah, I'm finding it very difficult to get back into the swing of things from where I kind of left off with the running program that I have with my treadmill, that it has the built-in programming. And yeah, I'm struggling with that. And now here we are, and I guess I could have recorded yesterday, and I don't know, because now the week is just short again, and work stresses and all those kind of things. I kind of made a little bit of a fuck up, and I'm trying to deal with that. And, mentally, it kind of just sits in the back of your head. You're like, seriously. I mean, it happens. But I just pride myself on not making any kind of real, significant error. So it just sucks. So I'm kind of crabby. And I think I mentioned it in the last couple of podcasts. My daughter is still very mad at me, doesn't want to talk to me at the moment, which is super stressful in and of itself because she is one of my favorite people on the planet. And that's probably part of the problem, to be perfectly honest, because all of my kids are so different and they take elements, and this is just parenting in general, is that they all have traits of you and your spouse. And that's very true. But I would have to say, from a temperament perspective, my daughter is very much like me. Or as I sometimes say, she has some of the worst elements of both of us, right? And that can be a challenge in and of itself. But like the kid that I always worried about when they were younger was my oldest, who, he's in college and just this great kid. And I was really worried about him. He had some, social challenges when he was younger. And, a lot of that was just not realizing, things like ADHD. I know that's become really commonplace and it seems like every other kid has it, but not every kid has it. So that's where, I tend to be a skeptic a little bit. I'm like, okay, is it really ADHD or am I just a shitty parent? You know what I mean? And I struggle with that. But my oldest and my daughter both have, ADHD. My youngest absolutely does not. So it's not one of those things that it's just automatic. There are definitely traits and markers. It is a very real thing. And there's various different ways to deal with it. And we've really, for the most part, not really done much medication-wise. And I think part of that is different reactions that the kids themselves had. My oldest did find it very helpful in high school, particularly like the middle part of high school into probably the first half of his senior year. And then he's just like, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. And he didn't use it at all in college. And he did really, really well both semesters. And yeah, and my daughter just doesn't, care for it. She's like, no, doesn't work for me. And so we try to find other ways to deal with it. But anyway, yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer because we had a nice little, fire by, the fire pit yesterday, and her boyfriend came over and we were listening to music, which was something that we'll talk about a little bit tonight, music wise. Unfortunately, my youngest couldn't join us because he was working on his biology portfolio. And yeah, kind of a bummer he couldn't be out there with us. He's like, I can't, I got to do this. I got to have it all done. So I commend him for that. And he's pretty self-driven and aware of the work that needs to be done. Very rarely is it an issue with missing work for him. Very, very rarely. Anyway, here we are, recording night, and I've been struggling with what's my topic going to be? So I'm going to share something with you. It is from a Twitter message that I sent. So I've mentioned before that one of my influences in podcasting is pro wrestler Chris Jericho, pro wrestler, musician, etc. And I went out on Twitter and put out a list of guests that I'd love to have on the podcast. Now, sometimes you just have to, as they say, shoot your shot. And I put it out on a Twitter, and one of the people who liked it is actually the guitar player for Chris Jericho's band, Fozzy. I'm like, sweet. Having the like on, hey, I'd like to invite you to be on the show, that to me meant that the door was open a little bit, right? So I DM'd him and said, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And I'll tell you what the topic was. Cover songs. We'll just cover music in general. So I'm just going to read you exactly what I wrote. And I wrote, so his nickname is the Duke. So I'm like, hello, Mr. Ward, the Duke himself. His name is Rich Ward of Fozzy. He was also in a band called Stuck Mojo, which was one of the earliest kind of rap hybrid bands. So it's like Faith No More did Epic, but like Stuck Mojo was around the late 90s or early 90s, I should say. And were very much would have been contemporaries, the latter end of the glam bands. And they just kind of struck their own path. But anyway, I saw that you had liked my post, so I wanted to reach out to give you some background. I have a Gen X themed podcast, blah, blah, blah. Tagline is the music, movies, and culture of Gen X, as you all heard in the opening of the show. I've been wanting to do an episode about greatest cover songs. And despite being metal superstars, you and Chris have never seemed to shy away from cover songs, first with Fozzy and now with Guardians of the Jukebox and Quarantine. You guys be perfect guests, but it doesn't need to be both of you. The invitation is open. Selfishly, I'm a fan, so I'd of course want to talk to you, and it would be a huge gap for my podcast. So I sent that out and say, hey, can we make this happen? This was in August of 2023. Now, Chris Jericho has a cruise, the Jericho Cruise. And he has bands and wrestlers, and it's really all of his interests, right? So go to episode. Guys, I'm not making this up. It kind of bums me out, but it also tells me that I do have good ideas, and is evidenced by some of the results of last week's show for Bon Jovi. Shout out to listener Jimmy. It's like I'm open to ideas because I think there are things that I may not consider or think of, and boom, here it is. So this is the episode that was recorded. Let's see, the cruise was in, I want to say March. So I sent that email in August, and he started preparing, for the show, the cruise months in advance. It is called Anatomy of a Cover Band, live from the Jericho Cruise. And this is what it says. It's American Idol alum James Durbin, Foo's Fighters frontman Nick Rich, Guardians of the Jukebox and Fozzy founding guitarist Rich Ward, and Femme Halen guitarist Roseanne Aldry. The topic, tribute bands. Hear why these stellar musicians love their cover bands and the lengths they go to convey the vibe, spirit, look, and sound of their respective bands. I mean, and I started listening to it. And it's all about cover bands and cover music and the passion that they all have for doing other people's songs, either completely faithfully or trying to find their own unique twist on these songs. And I'm just like, see, this is exactly why I had the concept for that episode and why Jericho and Ward would have been perfect guests. So here's what I know. My idea was solid, absolutely solid. And I stand by that. And I'm not saying they took the idea. People can have good ideas in a vacuum miles and miles apart. However, proof of concept, there it was. I mean, I'm just like, dude, seriously? Like, this is the conversation I wanted to have because Rich Ward gives this beautiful, I'm not going to call it a speech, but, he got asked the question about how he prepares and, how he works. And he's like, I don't treat it like a cover band. So Guardians of the Galaxy is 80s and 90s cover band. And they just do all different types of music. It could be anything from, Asia to Hall & Oates to Pat Benatar to, yeah, they do pop, like everything, dance, disco, like you name it, they do it. And I love that. I watch some, clips of the band and those kind of things. Great performances, great song selection. And they are doing their own unique twist on it sometimes, but there's this general faithfulness to the songs that they're doing and trying to give it life. And, they're talking about trying to be in the mindset of a Lionel Richie on one hand, and then, completely go to Van Halen. And I think that is also a Gen X thing, to be perfectly honest with you. I think we do have a really eclectic palette. We really do. And I do see some of I was thinking about, okay, it's millennials, Zoomers, and then Alpha, I guess. So my kids are Gen Alpha, and their appreciation for music across all eras. Now, this was evidenced from some of the nice time that we had last night. I'll just put it this way. When no one else is around, my daughter will not talk to me. She's like, I'm not talking to you. I told you I'm not talking to you. But when like her boyfriend was there and we're all gathered together, like at least we have instilled social graces, civility, if you will. Yep, I'm not going to go off and have a one-on-one convo with you right now. I'm still mad at you, but company is here. My boyfriend's here. We're just going to chat and talk about music, and we did that. And Apple Music will go ahead and take the songs that you've listened to a lot of or things that it believes are like suggestions, and it creates your own radio station. And that's what we put on. And it was just so interesting, the areas where they would say skip or, yeah, play that. And I will say it's a little bit heartwarming. Some of the stuff, they're like, oh, yeah, I'd probably listen to that anyway. Hall & Oates, big thing in our house. And that was not a thing that was huge for me when, I was younger. I appreciated them, and Daryl Hall can fucking sing. But yeah, it was just interesting. Hall & Oates, they're like, yeah, hell yeah. Cars, absolutely top of the list kind of stuff. So I'm just fascinated. And I do think I'll have my oldest on the show to talk about music, because I'm still fascinated where some of the things that I never really got into, and I wouldn't say my wife are huge fans of either, that are like his favorites. Like Billy Joel is his number one. I still don't know. Like if you're going to ask me the singer-songwriter of that era, I wouldn't have expected it of myself then. I would have really not liked either one of these artists in the 80s. I'm just being honest. Billy Joel or Bruce Springsteen. I definitely lean Bruce, which is not something that I necessarily thought would be the case. But yeah, he is a Billy Joel Fleetwood Mac kid. And it's so fascinating to me. It really is. So anyway, I was thinking about doing covers, and I do want to do a cover song episode, but I do have a guest I'd like to have on the show, and he might be listening, and just letting him know I'm probably going to reach out to you to do an episode on best cover songs, and we'll do that hopefully in the coming weeks. So what did I decide to do for this week, given that I was wrangling for a topic? I decided that I would take a look at GenX Reddit. That's right, GenX Reddit. So I don't know if any of you have gone down the Reddit rabbit hole. I've used it on occasion here on the show. We're talking about what's happening on the internet, but we're just going to go into Reddit itself and just go through. And what's interesting is that there's always moderators on Reddits and subreddits, etc. And the headline here says, yes, there are mods here under the header, whatever. And I just love how this first line starts. So we had a report earlier today on the thread about people riding in the back of a pickup truck that asked if there are any mods here, and we keep letting boomer memes in here. Okay. So there's not really much more to share about it, but it is so funny to me that one of the things that comes up is, I would like to say probably the recklessness of our childhoods, but not necessarily just our childhoods. Like riding in the back of a pickup truck, I feel like is a completely normal and common thing. And if you were like one of my buddies, his dad had a Subaru Brat, which literally had seats in the back. Now, the reason that that was okay is because it also had seat belts. You know, so you're sitting in the back of this little Subaru Brat out in the flatbed, with seating, rear facing, and just looking at oncoming traffic. And when your dad's hit the brakes and, cars are coming behind you going, whoo, and not to mention things like bird shit and rocks and all other kinds of things that could sometimes come your way. But it is very funny. So let's see here. These are the kind of topics that come up in GenX Reddit. So what GenX song never gets old? When it comes on, you stop, listen, and time travel every time. And the poster said, "Don't Dream It's Over" by Crowded House. Yeah, I could go with that. Just Like Heaven, The Cure. There you go. Right there, every single time. It is one of the most perfect songs ever written. And this is where my daughter would say, yes, that is a perfect song. It really, truly is. Structurally, all of it is wonderful. One thing leads to another, The Fix. Meh. Never my favorite song or band of the era, but it's good. Let's see. End of the World as We Know It by REM. Never a huge REM fan. I'll be perfectly honest. Never really got into them. I know some people who really like them. I met Michael Stipe. He was a super gentleman, but never my favorite. Modern English, Stop the World and Melt With You. Absolutely. Fan-frickin-tastic. It's just a great, great song. This one is people couldn't decide. Basically Any Tears for Fears. What is it? Song from the Big Chair, like any song, whether it's Shout or Everybody Wants to Rule the World. They're all good. I don't think I've ever listened to the whole album though. And what's interesting is that there was a version that played on my playlist the other night that had way more horns. And I don't remember if that was the actual original album mix or if there was a different one that was released for radio. I'd have to go and do some research. If you know, let me know. Hey ho, let's go. That's right. Any Ramones. West End Girls. Yeah, I don't know. Not sure how I feel about that. It's okay. Pet Shop Boys are okay. Never one of my favorites. Let's see. Take On Me, Aha. Yeah. Let's see. Tempted by Squeeze. Oh, man. Now that is a good frickin' song. Paul Carrack era Squeeze. So good. Man, not enough good things to say about that tune. Stepping Up by Joe Jackson. So Joe Jackson is a really interesting one because I think maybe it predated it. Let's see. Joe Jackson was definitely on my mom's playlist. You type in Joe Jackson and it brings up Michael's dad. Let's see. David Ian, Joe Jackson. Let's see. So you can't say it was 80s. Is She Really Going Out With Him was 1979. I think that's probably my favorite song. Got the Time, I think, was also 79. Let's see. Let's take a look at singles, shall we? Is She Really Going Out With Him actually came out in 78. Sunday Papers, One More Time, Fools in Love. Then released a reissue here in the States, 1979. I'm the Man. It's Different for Girls, Kind of Cute, The Harder They Come, Mad at You, 1 to 1. Wow. Jump and Jive, Jack Your Dead, Real Men, Stepping Out, Breaking Us in Two. A lot of songs. But I think I always think of Got the Time because of Anthrax's cover of it, which was excellent. But anyway, let's see what else is here on songs that you can't turn off. Let's see. The Secret. I was never a huge Pixies fan. Swing Out Sister, Break Out. That is an 80s gem. Let's see. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Relax. I mean, that's a good one. Life in a Northern Town, Dream Academy. Let's see. You know what? White Wedding. It's so interesting. Not my favorite Billy Idol song. Eyes Without a Face. Such a good freaking tune. I think somewhat underrated. And Billy just released a few videos from an in-studio performance. And, Steve Stevens is with him. And it is so good. And they do Eyes Without a Face. And his voice is great. Like I said, I've seen him live. Kick-ass show. But he's still going strong. Don't You Forget About Me, Simple Minds, absolutely. In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel. Yeah, that one might have been on more than one mixtape for Girlfriend here or there. Love Song by The Cure, also excellent. The only acceptable substitute, and it's a band I absolutely hate, is 311, but their Love Song is excellent. She Blind Me with Science is kind of gimmicky. If You Leave, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, excellent. Blue Monday, New Order, absolutely. And then, let's see, what else? Cruel Summer by Bananarama is a good one. Interesting. Throwing It All Away by Genesis. I'm not sure that is the one I would choose for Genesis. But then Salisbury Hill by Peter Gabriel or Red Rain, both really, really good. Oh, Drive by the Cars. All right, I could end up going down this whole Reddit. So let's go back to the main Reddit page and see what else is happening in the world of GenX Reddit. So we have here, has enough time passed that I can safely admit that I don't hate disco? Yes, there were plenty of great songs that came out of disco. And whether you want to say it's, the big two, when I say the big two, I'm talking about ABBA and the Bee Gees. I mean, absolutely really good stuff, because both of those groups that were working within this disco framework were excellent musicians. I think same thing goes with Chic and all the Nile Rodgers stuff. So yes, absolutely, it is okay to say that you don't hate disco. I completely understand the backlash that happened, but then think about this. You also had that era of Diana Ross disco, Upside Down. What a killer tune. And then Donna Summer. I mean, Donna Summer had some great songs. So yes, completely okay to say that you don't hate disco. Now, this one is interesting because I do think that all of us have experienced this to some extent or another. Maybe perhaps not this bad. So this says, I walked off a broken back as a kid. What did you have to walk off as a kid? So this person, analog again, clever. Not even kidding, we had a tire rope swing as a kid, which I was swinging on one day when the rope snapped right full swing. That's happened to me. I went sailing through the air and landed flat on my back in a pile of broken bricks, because that's what our boomer parents left as a soft landing for us, I guess. Anyway, I was totally winded in absolute agony, and I get the old, come on, get up, you'll be all right, just walk it off. Many years later, I discovered that I'd actually crushed 2 of my thoracic vertebrae. Yep, I had to walk off 2 crushed spinal bones. I'm betting there's more similar GenX stories out there. Broken finger, haven't we all just had to deal with just plopping it back in place if we needed to? My dad was a doctor and assured me my finger wasn't broken and didn't need an x-ray. Okay, so first of all, if your dad's a doctor, what the hell? Because then you had to go to the doctor and find out that it was in fact broken and needed to be reset. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah. I'm Gen X and my husband was too. He's dead now. Our son broke his finger playing and I wanted to take him to urgent care. And his dad was like, nah, he'll be fine. Took him a couple days later and obviously wasn't a sprain. So I'm not even going to go through the rest of these. And this is, I can't say that I was a kid when this happened. So I was probably, I want to say I was 19. So I'm not exactly, a real adult. And I got really, really drunk at a party. And unbeknownst to myself, the person that was hosting the party, we didn't know each other. Like, it was friends of friends, right? And Carlos, I believe if you're listening, you were there. Trying to remember this kid's name. This blonde guy, he was in the theater program and I think a little bit older than us. Anyway, turns out he was dating my ex. And this was a pretty serious relationship that had broken off. As serious as it's going to be at that age. And I was pissed and it was turning badly. And my buddies were trying to get me out of there. And I took a swing because I was so pissed. And because I'm in no position to be doing anything, much less fighting, I end up full force punching the wall. Now, the problem is this was not sheetrock because this was out in the hallway of a apartment complex, which meant that it was block. It was just concrete block. And I punched that sucker hard as I could because I was taking a swing, right? Not that I was going to connect because I was so slow and sloppy and stupid. So what do? I'm like, wow, that fucking hurts. And waited till I got sober enough. And at the time I drove standard and it was my right hand. So of course the hand that I'm going to be shifting with. And I drove home and I'm like, this really hurts to shift. And I get home and the next day I wake up and my hand is very swollen. But I'm like, everything's working. All my fingers were working. I'm like, it's fine. It's just, a little painful and swollen. So I didn't go to the doctor. My mom's like, I really think you should go to the doctor. I'm like, nah, I'm good. Just let the swelling go down. Just keep icing it, ibuprofen, whatever. Go to work, do whatever I need to do. And I finally go to the doctor after the swelling subsides and two of my knuckles are not where they belong. Yeah, it was bad. And because I'd waited a couple days, it was one of those situations go in and go, I'm going to have to set this. You have what's called a boxer's fracture. And mind you, this was a very close family friend was the doctor. He's like, I got you. Okay, we're going to do this. I'm going to get it right back to where it's supposed to be. And he did. Like, do I still feel a lot of discomfort and never exactly have the same strength in the hand? But yes, that is very typical of our generation to be like, meh. It's fine. It's fine. It'll be fine. Just give it a day or two and we're all good. Who else ordered novelty checks? Not me. I never did. I thought about it many, many times, but this person bought Scooby-Doo checks. Good for you. Okay, so this one's interesting, and I think about this. So how's your recall of the past? I recently met up with an old friend who I hadn't seen since high school. We're the same age, thick as thieves in elementary school, less so through middle and high school, always had the same circles. It was great catching up, but one thing stood out from this meetup. His recollections from childhood were so granular. He could recount events and interactions that I'd long forgotten and recalled them in such fine detail. He remembered the who, what, when, where, everything. Meanwhile, my memories of childhood are vague and unclear, like a copy of a copy of a copy. Weirdly, I still know my 7th grade locker combo. So it's so interesting because I'm definitely a moments person. And I remember embarrassment so clearly. I'll give you an example. There's a young lady who shall remain nameless who approached me and she was clearly being flirtatious. And I said the stupidest possible thing that I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before. I won't even bother repeating it. Anyway, I wasn't picking up what she was dropping. And boy, I will always remember the feeling of afterwards being, you idiot, right? I remember stuff like that. I remember first days at new schools. I remember good times too, though. Like I remember, going out on this beautiful hike with a few of my friends, and like there was this railroad trestle that got turned into like this footbridge, and it was fall and it was beautiful. Those kind of things I remember. I remember sitting around the table at my buddy's apartment and continuously putting pieces of fruit stripe into my mouth because those things run out of flavor so quickly. And I had this like wad of fruit stripe in my cheek, and they're all looking at me like, dude, that's nasty. I'm like, I'm just going to keep adding to it. Like stuff like that. like good, bad, indifferent, but they're all like glimmers, right? Where some things are very, very acute, where I can remember seemingly, 10, 15 minutes of a situation. But I think that's pretty common. I wouldn't beat yourself up, whoever this person is. So maybe I should reply. But yeah, I mean, it all depends. All of us recall things differently. And I think some of it is a matter of whatever's important to our subconscious, or it's just a matter that I can't say that you and this person had the same kind of upbringing, because maybe you were partying more than they would. And I'll tell you, a lot of those memories get super foggy. But yeah, I have a couple of good friends. Justin, who was on the show, his memory is astounding, like astounding. And that's probably why he is a published historian. His attention to detail for things, I think that's why he's able to recall musical parts. That's why he's such a fantastic drummer. Yeah, I mean, we all process information very differently. So I don't know how much of it is indicative of age even. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Let's see. What else? Working. I just don't care. How do you do it? Well, I get that. I've been working since I was 14. I'm now in my mid-40s, a younger Gen X, and I'm so worn out. I worked full-time through undergrad and almost full-time through law school and haven't had a break but for 1 6-month stint. So this is so interesting to me because I do feel, at least from my own experiences and people that I know well, we all began working pretty young. So I started mowing lawns when I was like 9 or 10. So I look at it that I've had a job of some sort that actually was, I got paid to do the lawn for our apartment building. I mean, that's working for cash, for a job that had people who were looking at the work, making sure it's being done, right? It was my responsibility since I was 9 years old. And then to think about, I turned 50 in like 2 weeks, folks, and I am thinking a lot about it. I think that's where some of my agita lately has come from as well, because I'm not sure I'm processing it particularly well. I definitely felt the same way hitting 40. Yeah, it's all just in our minds and all that, but to have, except for, and this person said 1 6-month stint. Okay. I worked sporadically between 19 and 21, but I still always worked. Really between 19 and 20. And it would be like I had 4 jobs at one time, down to 3 jobs, down to 2 jobs, down to 1 job, because I was working at nights and all those kind of things. But then when I didn't have those jobs anymore, I was probably unemployed for like a couple of months, found other ways to make money under the table kind of thing. And then I ended up doing telemarketing for a couple of months before I moved to Boston. And then I was unemployed in Boston for approximately 1 month before I got the job. So I'd applied in advance. They were just waiting for openings, basically waiting for people to quit and replace. And within 1 month's time, and I've been working ever since. I ended up having one other period of time off that was when I was 40, as a matter of fact. And I was out of work for about, 2 months, I think. And other than that, I've been working in some capacity since like 9 or 10 years old, starting with mowing lawns. I do think that we might be amongst the last generation who have either had to do that out of necessity or even just expectations of our parents saying, yeah, you're going to get a job. Like you need to. So my oldest has worked a job consistently. I mean, not during the school year. We haven't always made them work during the school year. He did for a little bit. But since he was 16, our daughter had a job for 2 days and then quit. And our youngest, he is set this summer to get a job, but he's 15. Yeah. I mean, I get it. We have been grinding away. And do I wish, looking back on it, that maybe I had done things differently, but it was an expectation that I get a job? Do I think it builds a certain work ethic? Absolutely. Do I think that means you then work your whole life? Yeah. And that can feel tiring, particularly when you get to this stage of your life. And then when you don't necessarily feel as though retirement is an option, and I definitely feel that. I'm like, well, shoot, I only have, 15 years between now and then. But yeah, I mean, I'm also paying for private school for my kids. It's a choice that we made, and that takes a lot of money. Okay, so here we have a picture that I can't share with you, but if I ever get these damn videos posted, of Parker James. Hold on a second. Well, I always get the Parkers wrong, but I think you know what I'm talking about, but I'd rather take a look. And hold on. Oh my gosh. Whenever they do remakes, of course, those are the most recent. It's just so frustrating. Let's see here. Wikipedia. Is that my Hank Hill? Not a very good one. Parker Stevenson, I was right, and Sean Cassidy. It's a picture of them with their beautifully feathered hair. And man, it seemed like every kid had a version of this hair in the 70s and the early 80s. Let's see what else we have here. Any Pink Floyd fans out here? Get out of here. I'm not a fan. Do you remember the last time you went to the mall with your parents and bought like a whole year's worth of school clothes? Yeah. Well, yes and no. Like when I was younger, so before we had two incomes in the house, so before my mom got remarried to my stepdad, it was like Walmart, Caldor, Ames, Zayre, all the Bradley's, all the discount brands. That's all that was on the table. My grandma worked at Walmart, so we got like a discount on top of like, the $3 pants that you'll skin your knee and destroy in like a minute. But when we had the two incomes, there's a place in Meriden. I think it's Meriden, might be Berlin, but it's on the Berlin Turnpike, called Mickey Finn's. That was the place that I got to go. It was either Bob's in Middletown or Mickey Finn's. So Bob's store is still around. I'm not sure if they're still national. No, they were at one time. But Bob's or Mickey Finn's was my first opportunity to get brand name clothing. And for discount pricing, before, I don't even remember really going to Marshall's much until I started working there. Anyway, what's your favorite movie that's still obscure or underappreciated? And the example of the poster here was Dreamscape, starring Dennis Quaid and Max von Sydow. I have to be honest, I don't think I've ever seen Dreamscape. What are some other postings here? Last Starfighter. Hell yeah. Last Starfighter. I've heard some talk that either a reboot or a direct sequel, but absolutely. Last Starfighter, I have watched it I don't know how many times. Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. I've only seen it a couple of times, but it always had a distinct and obvious look and feel to it. So what? That's Paul Weller, and is John Lithgow in that? Let's see. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. Buckaroo Banzai. Let's see. Yeah, Peter Weller. What did I call him? Did I call him something else? Peter Weller, Ellen Barkin, John Lithgow, Jeff Goldblum, and Christopher Lloyd. I mean, fantastic. I can't remember the last time I saw it. I've only seen it a couple of times, but I will say that Peter Weller, I've come to realize lately, and part of it is some content on Twitter, where it's looking at what the plot point is of RoboCop, and you fast forward all these years, and someone posted a summary saying that's basically corporations were fueling like riotous behavior in order to depreciate market values on real estate so they can buy it up and develop it. And it's just so interesting because I'm not sure that's exactly what's going on right now, but you can't say it's not at all going on right now. So I guess we need a RoboCop. That poor guy. He couldn't stop working after he was dead even. Secret of Nim, banger, Watership Down, Nightmare Fuel, Last Unicorn, never seen it, Dark Crystal, Also kind of nightmare fuel, but also kind of cool. Ice Pirates, I remember seeing it once back in the day. Robert Urich. I mean, there's something to it. I'm not sure what it is, but there's definitely something to it. Explorers, never a huge fan. But it was the first appearance of River Phoenix and Ethan Hawke, I think. Excalibur. Holy shit. Excalibur. I remember seeing that. I want to say it was either my grandma, somebody had cable, and I did not know how freaking gory. That movie was gory and dark, but man, you look at that cast, and I mean, it is unbelievable. Patrick Stewart, let's see, Excalibur. Disambiguation. Film. Where did it go? Film, 1981. Nigel Terry as Arthur, Nicole Williamson as Merlin, Nicolas Cage as Lancelot, Sherry Lungi as Guinevere, Helen Mirren as Morgana, Liam Neeson as Gawain, Gabriel Byrne as Uther, and Patrick Stewart as Leon de Grance. Crazy cast with some of those going on to be just massive stars. Man, how old was Liam Neeson? Holy cow. He was almost 30 when that came out. Guy's been around forever. Anyway, I could go down this whole rabbit hole. Hopefully someone here has said Kroll. Ah, there it is. I was hoping someone would say Kroll. Same exact thought. Samesies, Beastmaster. Oh, okay. I don't see it here. Dragon Slayer is not showing. That, I loved that stupid movie. It got wicked dark. My wife loves Lady Hawk. Oh, I just don't do Broderick. I mean, honestly, I just don't. Inner Space, amazing. Dennis Quaid, Martin Short. I'm always here for Martin Short. Maybe he's an acquired taste. Some people love him or whatever, but I think he's insanely talented. Time Bandits, absolutely. Okay. Oh, They Live. Hell yeah. Roddy Piper, amazing. Best fistfight scene in the history of movies. Let's see. Camping out for concert tickets. Absolutely. Before online salespeople, camp out at record stores, department stores, or venue box office. I remember waiting in, as the British will say, a queue. What was the first concert I waited for? It was probably some hair band. I don't remember which one. As seen on TV, Showtime, Rotisserie, and Barbecue. I remember those becoming a thing, and they were gradually kind of upgrading and updating, and then my aunt bought one. She's like, look at my rotisserie chicken maker. So here's one that has a former breakdancer, right? And it's like Unc showing these youngsters how to do it. It's so fascinating to me, and this goes back to the conversation about music with the kids, is that so much of the things that they, I don't want to say take for granted, but I did a whole episode on hip hop being like our generation, and many of the greatest rappers, or those who are considered the greatest rappers, are all Gen X. And we're such an interesting generation, the number of things that we really did have that were unique to us. And I guess it's the same way, we talk about the bands of the 60s and the 70s when we were in the 80s and 90s, like how we looked back at like Elvis or the Beatles and Stones and the Who, and then later into, Zeppelin. Now, yes, Zeppelin was still together in our lifetime, but we were little, but, that's 10, 15, then 20 years before you know it. And it's kind of where we're at now, except even longer. Hip hop is 40 years in. Oh man, we're old, guys. We're old. Let's see. Jane's Addiction Tour. They do that every couple of years. And this time with Love and Rockets. That's an interesting show. So Alive. Let's see. Raffia Wear. Yes, we had our last Raffia Wear Bowls finally just get destroyed. Just a few years ago, we had the bowls and we used them for the ice cream with the kiddos. Let's see. Hip versus trying too hard. Am I too old to care if my shorts are the right length? Okay, so this is not about fashion necessarily or trying too hard. But I do know that because of my particular middle-aged shape, I am a shape, it's round, little pearish at the moment with my midsection. I do find that the length of the short can have an impact of how svelte or how stocky one may look. So I just think that's something to consider. I will admit, and maybe it's just because of my age, I do find certain comfort in a good old-fashioned cargo short. I think they're handy. I think it allows me a lot of opportunity to do stuff. But, man, the way they hit your leg, it's just, man. This is probably a Rickroll, so I'm not even going to read it. Before Wayne and Garth, there were these guys, Bob and Doug McKenzie. It's a really good comparison. I have to admit, that's a really good comparison. The McKenzie brothers and Strange Brew. Hey, take off, eh? Excellent comparison. Let's see. What else do we have here before we start rolling things up for the night? Let's see. I became my dad today. He said because he was listening to Huey Lewis in the news. I know it's because he's a younger Xer. He's like, I was 8 when this came out. I was 12 when it came out. And Huey Lewis is very much a contemporary part of my childhood. I wouldn't consider that becoming my dad. Let's see. Some guy posted that he found his high school hat, which is a Vans checker hat. Let's see. What else we got here? No, that's video content. I'm not going to play that. How many of you actually used Quaaludes and how was it? I've never used Quaaludes. Oh my gosh, what an odd question. Did anyone else have a super glue mishap as a kid? Why, yes, I did. I did have my fingers stuck together quite terribly once. And then actually a couple years ago, I was working on something and I did it. It was one of those things that my brain just shut off, and it was like one of the Gorilla Glues, and I just wasn't paying attention. And the whole point of the Gorilla Glue is it adheres when the two sides come together. And I guess I had it on my fingers, and I was kind of like, oh, what's this on my finger? And I put my fingers together, and yeah. Anyway, Gen Xers of bitter parents. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. My 8th grade son found broken bike in woods. I taught him to repaint it, and it looks like new. Okay. I'm looking here. Ooh. Yeesh. Okay. Concept is there. I don't love the gold and silver paint, but this does remind me of the fact that my first BMX bike was my dad went to the dump. He used to drive his Jeep through the dump, and he found this bike and he brought it back to my grandparents' house. And he's like, hey, what colors do you like? Yada, yada. And the frame was painted blue. Handlebars were black grips, all of it. And he just got me this bare bones basic bike, and I freaking loved it. So yes, you can find a garbage bicycle and reclaim it. It's a lot of fun. Let's see. Anything else interesting here? Maxim magazine was just Cosmo for dudes. Fair. Let's see. Imitation Yoo-hoo chocolate cow. Do you guys know what chocolate cow is? Never heard of it. Let's see. What's been the most challenging phase of life for you? For me, it's been my 40s in general. 20s were good and kept getting better. 30s were actually great. Reached 40 and a tough time. Bro, guess what? I was thinking that I was going to have all my shit figured out by the time I hit 50, and surprise, Just speaking for myself, I'm not sure that I got it all figured out. Um, is it my age or is it harder in general to meet people in real life? Okay, so this seems to be about dating and being single. I have to tell you, I can't imagine being single nowadays. I really can't. So for those of you who are perhaps never married or have been divorced, I don't know how you do it. I say just God bless you. I can't imagine dating now. And I mean, and it was hard then. Now I'm saying that in full disclosure, this isn't meant to be like, I don't even know how it's going to sound, but like I always found it really easy to date in the 80s and the 90s. Like it really was. And I'd like to say that apparently when I was young, I had a good look, carried myself well, whatever it was. I can't imagine doing it the way that I look now, the way that I sound now, the way that I wear my cargo shorts and the pot belly that I'm working very hard to get rid of. Yeah, I can't imagine what it's like right now. So kudos to you if you're still plugging away at it. I hope you find, that special someone. GenX and plastic surgery. Anybody had work done? And what are your thoughts on cosmetic surgery? I'm already wrinkly as fuck and I'm okay with it. So here's the thing. Nope, no plastic surgery, chemotherapy, but no plastics. That is quite the response, the kind of response you only get on social media. I lost a bunch of weight and have weird loose skin on my stomach. My B-Day present is getting that removed. That seems reasonable because that's also very specific to health. And you've done something amazing for your health. Why not do it? I'd get my turkey waddle fixed if I wasn't on the brink of financial ruin. See, this is what I mean. It's like, oh, I have plastic over that titanium in my knee. Does that count? Yeah. So here's the thing with aging and plastic surgery. There's a lot of things that people do cosmetically. And if you are one of these people, please bear in mind that I am not passing judgment when I say this. I started going gray at 19 years old. I got my first gray hair. Now, mind you, at the time I was dyeing my hair all kinds of crazy bullshit, right? But when I stopped doing that, when I started getting my first corporate jobs, within like 2 years, I started to see my temples grow in very slowly, gradually. By the time I was 30 and starting to have kids, it was very obvious that I had these gray wings happening. And by the time I was 40, I was pretty much like a little more salt than pepper, to be perfectly honest. I still have some pepper in there. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of a family genetics thing. But I briefly considered right around the time that I got married. So I got married at 29. I got married at 29, had our first kid at 31. I think that when we started to have kids, I briefly considered it. I thought, maybe I want to do this. Like maybe I want to diet. And it just seemed so, I think it's like the old like indie rock mentality that it didn't seem real if I did that. And sometimes I still think, gosh, maybe I should have done that. I maybe would have had a different standing or bearing socially. When I say that, I really mean more professionally, like presented a certain way. But I'm the age that I am. And it's really all it comes down to. I am, I'm gray. I'm gray. And let's see. Anything else here? Anything else? Hands Across America. Yeah, that was a thing. I was listening to some old Metallica. And is Justice for All considered old Metallica? Yeah, first 4 releases. Yeah, absolutely. They've had 15 albums, I think. All right, 10? Hold on. Metallica. For some reason, I get to a certain point in the podcast, and you won't hear it because I'm going to edit it, but it's like this little annoying sound that seems to happen. And it's like not quite feedback, but it's very bizarre. Discography. 11 albums. So Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, Justice for All. Yeah, that is early. I mean, 83, 84, 86, 88 in the first 5 years. Biggest time in between records up to that point was from Justice to the Black Album was 88 to 91, but they were touring like crazy. Then 5 years. So that Black Album, they toured for like 3 years straight. So Load comes out in 96, Reload 97, then nothing again until Saint Anger in 03, Death Magnetic in 08. Then there's an 8-year layoff for Hardwired to Self-Destruct. And then 7 years later for 72 Seasons, which, by the way, I think is an absolute killer record. So yes, and Justice for All is in fact old Metallica. Here's a meme that says, remember when you used to be able to call someone 57 times and hang up and they never knew it was you? Good times. Yeah. I mean, when caller ID happened, that was certainly different. All right. And we've never had a Gen X president. True. But I guess we're going to wait until we're in our 70s and 80s before we're president, right? Good grief. And then, okay, so I noticed this one. So how do y'all deal with the fact that you were raised by abusive narcissists? So this is not about this post per se. But if you hear the talking heads and Twitter and Reddit and all these different sources, basically, every time someone seems to be a selfish asshole at any phase of their life, the word narcissist is thrown around. And I just want people to be cautious about just, such a narcissist. People can be selfish. People can be jerks, self-absorbed, all those things, and not be narcissists. I think it's just very cautious, something that is a clinical term to throw it around like that. Just because I think everyone thinks that they are like internet sleuths, but like in psychotherapy. Like, I'm going to go to WebMD and I'm going to look at all these things. And, I think you suffer from this disorder. I think you suffer from that disorder. Please leave it to clinicians and don't do it to yourself either, because you will drive yourself crazy. Like, I'm feeling some discomfort in my, left pinky toe. Oh, well, you know what that means? No, what does it mean? Hold on. What does WebMD say? Oh, you might have a fatal form of whatever. Stop doing that. And then finally, let's see. Just looking for one last post here. My parents didn't smoke cigarettes. So there's like, how many of you still remember your parents' cigarette type? Neither one of my parents were smokers. My stepdad did smoke. He was Marlboro Reds. My first pack of cigarettes that I had were Winston's. I think they were Winston Lights, actually. And let's see. Yeah, I don't think there's really anything else here. Nothing else that I find particularly interesting. Oh, well, this is bleak. After 52 years, I know what the purpose of life is. You solve a million problems and then you die. I'm not sure that's it either. Although it definitely feels that way. The secret to life was best summed up by Mallory Keaton on Family Ties. Something to the effect of, something like, you hope you fall in love. What was Mallory's quote? Be nice, try not to hurt anyone, fall in love, something like that. It was very simple. And it's like Mallory was known for being ditzy, and yet she had like the best, outlook on life. So anyway, that was Gen X, Reddit, and that's the episode, folks. That's what I came up with for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. It gave just some talking points, some leap off points, just to have some interesting conversations about things that, I don't know, that are relevant to our generation, or at least to these individuals who are out there, and like we all are. You know, I talk about doing the podcast for a lot of different reasons, and I received an email from a listener that I'm not gonna share here. But one of the key things is trying to make connections. That's the secret of life, trying to make connections that are meaningful. And even though I may not meet any of you, it's a matter that you keep coming back, listening to the show because there's something that you find identifiable. Or if you're new to the show and you just stumbled across this, please listen to some older episodes. I think there's probably some things that you'll like. And it's because I just try to speak authentically about my own life, my own experiences, and how it relates to the period of time that we came up in and how it shaped our worldview. So even though many of us have had different backgrounds, many of us had similar backgrounds as well. Some things that are just generational. They truly are. And I think it shaped us, informed us in good ways and bad ways, but nevertheless, it's who we are. It's our outlook on things. And, I don't go down the political road. And there was a couple of really interesting GenX articles that popped up when I'm like GenX in the news. I like doing that on occasion. And it just got too heavy. And at the same time, it made me think about kind of the space that we occupy. And it is unique and it is different. And there's a reason I call it Stuck in the Middle. And, we're in this kind of unique space in society and in time in general, in the timeline of humanity, of who we are and what we can hope to, give to the world. That's really all it's ever about. What can we give to the world? And sometimes we give nothing but positive. Sometimes it's negative, but most often for most of us, it's a little bit of both. And you're just trying to find that balance. So hopefully this week you all find your balance. If you're feeling slightly out of balance, I know that I have definitely been feeling that way, and just trying to do the things that, we know to work. That's what I want to say. We know what works. We know that we're going to feel better when we eat healthy and we exercise and we do these things for ourselves. We know that, but we also know that we can get to the point where we're so far beyond that because we've allowed ourselves these bad habits, or we've had things that have actually occurred to us physically or mentally that makes it really difficult to take those first steps because it's hard to do. And any of you out there who maybe cannot walk, okay, what do I do? Well, just so you know, if you're ever interested, you want to shoot me an email, number of resources that I've come through over the years for those who want to work on overall fitness while seated. There are things that can happen, and I'd love to help in any way that I can. That's really part of the reason I do this. Just if I can help even one person, then that's really meaningful to me. So, okay, getting off this stupid high horse, going to wrap this episode up. So, hey, email me, do all that stuff. How do you do it? You email me at stuckinthemiddlepod@yahoo.com. You can find me on Instagram, X, and YouTube at StuckPodX. Heading over to the Facebook page, Stuck in the Middle, a Gen X podcast. Please like, comment, share, leave 5-star reviews, and most importantly, please subscribe to the podcast. So until next time, later, slackers.